In our current environment, it's quite tempting to want to go out and get a private island where I can just live by myself in peace. The Netflix original movie Rose Island is based on a true story where an Italian engineer does kind of just that. An idealistic engineer builds his own island off the Italian coast and declares it a nation, drawing the world's attention. Values are tested when the Italian government declares him an enemy. But to change the world, risks must be taken. It's the late 1960s and Giorgio Rosa is an engineer. And he is quirky and odd and just a little bit weird. But he's fed up by living with these rules that he finds to be arbitrary. You know, we call them laws. So he gets an idea that he wants to build an island off the coast of Italy, and just far enough off the coast where he's in international waters, and theoretically outside of anybody's jurisdiction. He gets a friend on board, and then they slowly begin to attract people of like mind who don't want to live by the rules anymore. They don't want to be encumbered by just all of these political norms or these social norms or just where people are telling me what to do. It's basically he wants to build a utopia. This is a dramatic comedy, and some of the comedy is actually pretty funny in this. And not because they're jokes. Rosa has these mannerisms, these facial expressions, and just his dialogue that makes you chuckle. It's pretty intriguing to watch this ragtag group of people try and come up with some sort of their own government, or at least their own way of thinking, their way of life, to organize themselves so that they can qualify for anything that sits outside any type of governmental jurisdiction. I mean, they want to remain autonomous from any nation. I enjoyed how the movie showed us how Rosa began to build the island, but I wish they would have shown more. Like we see him get the pylons out there that become the initial foundation out in the middle of the ocean. But after that, the scene changes and all of a sudden there's a concrete platform. Then the scene changes again and there's walls and there's different structures on this. I would have liked to have seen the struggle that they went through. How did they accomplish it? What are the things that they did? Now, I don't need to see a ton of footage on this. I don't need it to be boring and just drawn out. A montage would have been nice, and it would have been sufficient. And they did montages for other parts of this movie, so it wouldn't have even felt out of place. I just think because this is based on a true story, it gives us more context of some of the struggles that they went through, or at least to see even some of the processes that they did, because this is no small feat to build an island of any type of size out off of the coast, just basically in the water. Well, of course, that's what an island is, right? I mean, it's out in the middle of the water, surrounded by water, because that's what makes it the island. The fight that Rosa has with the Italian government on setting up his own independent nation is interesting, but it's also frustrating, especially from a justice standpoint. It's almost like the Italian government had some sort of vendetta against this group. They give justifications for why they kind of feel this way, but it seems kind of out of whack. And I think that part of it is in line with some of the other ways that I feel about this movie, that I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the story being built, but I felt that there was some development lacking in certain parts of it. Like there's a romantic relationship that Rosa has or had, and I would have liked to have seen a little bit more background on it, to heard at least a little bit more background on it. What went wrong? Why did it change? All of these things that really it helps to shape his character and some of his motivations. We also see tension between Rosa and his parents, and some of it is explained and some of it I get, but then there are some other portions of it where it just feels cold and detached, and I don't know why. And probably I think the biggest thing that I would have liked more development on, especially because I'm an American and watching something that has taken place in the history of Italy, is the social and political landscape of the country. We hear little snippets on the news and even through the government briefings and their discussions about things that are going on in the country. And you know that has to shape some of their feelings towards Rosa and him building his island. And I would have liked to have more context on that. Give us some more information, some more depth on that, especially for anybody that didn't live either through that era or even from that country. I mean, I think back to the movie Cachet, where I watched it, and at the end of it, I was like, I didn't really like this movie because I didn't understand what was going on. I then watched the special features with the director telling us all of the context for what was going on in that time period of that movie, all of a sudden it all clicked and it all made sense. And what was a kind of okay movie, or I didn't really enjoy it, to, oh my gosh, that was so great. It's because I had all of that context for something that I didn't live through. And I just wish that they would have presented more of that in this story, because it is based on a true story and because it is real events. And so I think in some aspects, the filmmakers are relying on certain people to already have that context, to already know what's going on, and so they can infer, and it helps put all of those pieces together really quickly for them. But for any of us that didn't live through that or are unfamiliar with it, it's kind of a hindrance. And I think that goes also to, the movie is almost 2 hours long, and I felt that they could have put more in there. I felt that they could have put a little bit more meat in there. I mean, even with the beginning of the story, it starts off with Rosa talking with some legal experts for his fight for independence. And I would have liked to have seen more of that. I wanted to get more detail in that and help. I think it really does help build a richer story. So overall, it is an interesting watch, and I enjoyed the characters a lot. Rosa, especially with his facial expressions, with just his ways of thinking, some of the concepts that he comes up with, and though we only hear about those through little bits of dialogue, and they're enough, though, to engage me with him and to really make me feel for him and for his cause and make me want to be on his side. But on the flip side, like I said, I wish there would have been more context so that I would have had a greater understanding for what was going on in the social, the political arena at this time, which also then shapes the motivations and even the actions and the reactions of the government. There's no sex, possibly very brief nudity, some profanity, and not really any violence. I give Rose Island 3 out of 5 couches. So if you're going to have your own private island, where in the world would that be? At least what part of the world? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for catching with me.